welcome back. The UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has unveiled his timetable for the gradual lifting of the lockdown in England starting on the 8th of March. If all conditions are met, the restrictions will be completely lifted by the 21st of June. The Prime Minister said there could be no such thing as a COVID-free future, but the end of the restrictions was finally in sight. On the 8th of March, all children will go back to school and further education colleges will open. Residents in care homes will be allowed one regular visitor. Outdoor meetings will be allowed between 2 people. From the 29th of March, up to 6 people or 2 households will be able to meet outdoors, including in private gardens, and some outdoor sport will be allowed. From the 12th of April at the earliest, shops, gyms, and hairdressers will be allowed to open along with outdoor hospitality venues such as pub gardens and theme parks. From the 17th of May, cafes, pubs and restaurants will be able to fully open, and on the 21st of June, it is hoped that all remaining restrictions will end. The BBC's Laura Kinsberg has more in this report.
Instructions from Downing Street have for months made life a vague reflection of what it used to be. Going out replaced with staying in, high streets closed for business, classrooms for millions, makeshift ones at home.
We need tens of these. Thank you.
But the kitchen table will soon stop being the school desk too. 6-year-old Aidan and his mum and dad won't have to juggle their jobs with times tables. And he can wear his new uniform at last.
Your lovely new trousers, which you've not had the opportunity to wear. It would be really good for him to go back. What do you reckon? Yeah. I actually wanted to be a teacher. Thank God I didn't pick that profession because I don't think I'd be any good at it.
Getting children back to school was the Prime Minister's priority, but a fast return to freedom, this is not.
With every day that goes by, this programme of vaccination is creating a shield around the entire population, which means that we're now travelling on a one-way road to freedom. Whenever we ease the lockdown, whether it's today or in 6 or 9 months, we've got to be realistic and accept that there will be more infections, more hospitalisations and therefore, sadly, more deaths, just as there are every year with flu. And thanks to the vaccinations, that there is light ahead, leading us to a spring and a summer which I think will be seasons of hope and from which we will not go back.
There will be some rules in place for another 4 months. When do you really hope to be able to say to the public, it's over?
Laura, this isn't the end today, but it's very clearly a roadmap that takes us to the end and takes us on a one-way journey. We will be guided by the data and by the progress that we make, and that's why it is important also to be cautious.
That report from the BBC. As works continue on the PI beach, Choiseul Saltibus MP Bradley Felix is again clarifying that these are desilting works and not sand mining.
As the project being undertaken at the PI beach in Choiseul continues to receive traction, there has been lots of complaints of inadequate consultation initiated between residents of the area and the authorities charged with the project. Parliamentary representative for Choiseul Saltibus Bradley Felix on Tuesday explained that such complaints are not 100% genuine, as majority of the calls to have the mouth of the river desilted came from residents themselves.
The people have been the ones consistently calling with regards to ensuring that their properties are protected. That has, from the time I've come into office, that has always been the cry from the people who live on the riverbanks to pay attention to the desilting to ensure that there's no flooding. I can tell you that there's a business act on the beachfront, and the cries from him over the years have been significant. The people who live on the river wall have continuously called me, and if you go there now to see the difference in terms of what was there and what we have done as it relates to backfilling of costs that the river had taken on its own, it's a significant difference. So, like I said, I believe a lot of the interpretation has not been sincere.
There continues to be much debate as to whether what is taking place is called desilting the river mouth or sand mining from the beach. Felix says it has to be looked at technically. both phrases can be used.
We use the words desilting, sand mining exchangeably. So some people may say desilting, which is what was being done. Sand mining can be used as well because sand was extracted from the area to bring another place. But in essence, what was being done was desilting, which is what was sand being taken out from the river mouth. Sand mining because sand was taken out of the area. So the words can be used exchangeably, you know. So I think it's a storm in a teacup how it's being interpreted.
Felix maintains that the sand being extracted will be put to good use within the constituency.
We have a number of fields that we are laying over. We have the Gaiba Opak Road that needs some backfilling. We have the Dibrel Montet Road that will be happening very soon. And some of the material will be taken for these projects and projects in surrounding communities.
The MP says the ongoing project is for the betterment of the constituency on a whole. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Thank you, Genevieve. Over the weekend, news surfaced that veteran journalist and media owner Dennis Dabrio had passed away. At the time of his passing, Dabrio was the owner and editor at One Caribbean. He previously owned and operated Think Caribbean Television, TCT. Media counterpart Earl Bousquet spoke about his life and his contribution to the field of broadcast media.
Dennis is one of those colleagues who I have known of his situation for quite some time, but would not share it because he didn't, and it was not in my place to let St. Lucians know that for several years now Dennis Dabrio had been blind. And yet being blind established some regional records in the field of journalism and newspaper publishing. He was the first and only blind publisher who wrote editorials every week and every weekend for his newspaper.
Bousquet said that while Dabrio was Grenadian by birth, his life was dedicated to the Caribbean as a whole and St. Lucia in particular.
That he named his newspaper One Caribbean and published it within the context and the historical philosophy of fellow Grenadian T.A. Marichaud, who published a newspaper called the West Indian in the period after the First World War, between the First and Second World Wars, which was dedicated to the creation of a West Indian nation. And Dennis Dabrio came to St. Lucia, and he was not only a newspaper publisher, he was also a writer, the very first writer in the Caribbean to put the history of the Grenada Revolution in pen and paper.
That was veteran journalist Earl Bousquet. The early childhood sector has accused the Ministry of Education of neglect. On Tuesday, Minister with responsibility for education, Dr. Gail Rigobert, explained that the assistance that is being requested by the sector would have to come from the Ministry of Finance.
On more than one occasion, the National Association for Early Childhood Practitioners has taken to the media to express discontent with the level of consultation and the results being yielded when in dialogue with the government. Minister with Responsibility for Education, Dr. Gail Rigobert, on Tuesday addressed the claims that the early childhood sector is not usually represented at stakeholder meetings with the ministry.
The person who represents the early childhood education sector in these meetings is Miss Prince, and she's the one who dialogues with them. I have met with them on occasion, but you can well appreciate that at the management level, there is an education officer assigned to different sectors. For example, in the same way that Mr. Segis is the officer assigned to special education, Miss Prince is the officer assigned to the early childhood education sector, and it is expected that she would relay to the various players in that subsector what the outcome of these meetings are.
Dr. Rigobert says there have been many meetings held with the sector. However, most of the issues being brought up would involve an audience with the Ministry of Finance.
I can say to you that when I met with them, And given the concerns that they raised, that we were very grateful for that exchange. But some of these issues require the collaboration and input, especially of the Ministry of Finance, since many of many of the requests that they are making require or do have financial implications for the government.
She says the sector is not being neglected, but rather all the right channels are being utilized to ensure that issues are addressed properly. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Stay with us. We have more news coming up after the break.